and I'll be happy to pay that as well, you know, whatever it is.
Okay, we're live.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean McGuire. I'm the Executive Director at the Albany County Land Bank. It is 2:33 p.m. on Wednesday, December 10th, 2025. We're calling to order a meeting of the Land Bank's Executive Committee, and we're holding this meeting remotely per New York State Open Meetings Law. This meeting is available on the Land Bank's YouTube channel for listening and viewing. Today, we have all of our committee members participating on the call, including our Chair, Charles Huey, Vice Chair, Sam Wells, Treasurer, Natisha Alexander, and our Secretary, Joe Seaman-Graves. We have all the staff joining us as well. Lynette, Jason, Lillian, Shelby, and Susan is working remote today. The agenda was circulated to committee members ahead of time. It contains a number of items. The first item on the agenda is a review of the meeting minutes from the last two meetings. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review those. Are there any questions, suggestions, amendments to the minutes as presented? If there are none, we'll need a motion to adopt these minutes to our records.
So moved.
Moved by Sam. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Natisha. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? All right, that motion carries. I'm going to go into my review of the financial reports. Charlie, we did mute you because there was some background noise there. So if you want us to unmute you if you're not sure, we can do that. Okay, the November 2025 financial summary or financial reports were sent ahead of time. I'm going to hit the key financial highlights, and then I'm going to go into the balance sheet and the activity statements. So for this past month, we had total assets of $4.8 million. We had current assets of $4.7 million, including our bank accounts. Total liabilities of $786,000, equity of $4.1 million. Total revenue this year was $416,000 versus a budget of $3.4 million. The difference there is that we expected to get into the Flip the Block program this year, and we're going to be into that next year. And so we're under by $3 million on revenue. That's just the grant revenue that we did not receive for not starting that project. Our cost of goods sold is $611,000 versus a budget of $2.5 million. Same thing with the Flip the Block timing. So we're under budget there by $1.8 million. Our net revenue through November is a loss of $860,000. I'll review some more of that in detail as we get further in. Our year-over-year revenue is $416,000 versus $1.3 million from last year, down 68%. But again, I'll hit those pieces there. So let me start with the balance sheet. As of November 30th, 2025, we had total assets on line 37 of $4.8 million. That includes our bank accounts of about $3 million on line 8. We have other receivables of $250,000 on line 11. That's the Albany County annual contribution, which we are expected to get this month after I talk to the county. And then other current receivables of $1.4 million on line 28 include grant receivables of $300,000 and our property inventory of about $1 million on line 27. And then we have fixed assets, furniture, fixtures, and equipment of $161,000 on line 36. Any questions on our assets on the balance sheet? All right, I'll move to liability, starting on the bottom of line 70. We have liabilities of $786,000.
Hear me, Sean?
Yes.
Okay. You've been going through the financials. For some reason, my microphone didn't work. You don't refer to the line number. What line number are you on now?
I just went through the line numbers on the balance sheet. I just went through total assets at line 37.
Where are you? I'm able to talk to you. Where are you right now? On what line? In what form?
I'm about to go to liabilities on line 70.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So we have liabilities on line 70 at $786,000, current liabilities of $786,000 on line 69. We have a little bit of deferred revenue of $311,000 at line 63. We have our lease liability for the office at line 59 of $157,000, and then on to equity at line 74 of $4.1 million. That includes our unrestricted net assets of $4.9 million on line 72, and then our loss through November of $860,000 on line 73. I want to just hit those pieces real quick for you. I mentioned that we're still due the $250,000 from Albany County. We've had that request in, but just waiting for them to get through the budget and timing. They're supposed to put that through this next check run there. We have about $158,000 in sales pending. We're just waiting on.
Sean.
Yes.
They passed the budget last night. It was in the newspaper. Are we in the budget?
We should be in the budget. When I saw the draft, we were in the budget. I haven't opened the county budget yet to make sure that we're still in there, but I have no reason to expect it.
Tonight. It was on the news today.
The county budget was on the news today?
The county budget was passed last night, according to the newspaper. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it was passed. Yeah, that was passed on Monday. Yep.
Good, okay.
So I'll verify that we're still in there, but we were in there, and we were in the executive's budget. I just haven't had a chance to get back into that yet. All right. Lease liability on line 59 for our office space, $157,000. We carry that liability throughout as we pay our lease, that liability decreases. Then we have I was going through the equity at line 74 of $4.1 million. 4.9 is unrestricted net assets, net income, a net loss of $860,000 on line 73. And that's where I was just giving some greater detail on the county, $158,000 in sales pending. We just finished November, so we have a $50,000 reimbursement going into New York State for LBI operations for $50,000. We have expected 79 Elizabeth Street to close, but that's probably going to be 2016 before we realize that. So we'll defer another $189,000 in revenue until next year. We have our LBI Phase 2 grant that we have to close out. That's $121,000. And then whatever we're due in the next LBI 2 grant, and we're going through that. There's a bit of a delay with getting things processed through the state because of getting some environmental reviews wrapped up that weren't done previously by staff that aren't here. And so we just got that cleaned up. Didn't take too much to do. They were really great about it. But now that we've got that done, Jason's just going to check back in and make sure that they don't have any other questions, so we can keep sending in our reimbursements. The South End Development Project, Charlie, we met on Friday, and so I'll just give you some updated numbers here. That whole project, we were initially anticipating about $750,000 in total revenue once the whole project was done. That number is actually $847,000. We're going to get a little bit more out of that as a result of some of the final numbers on that, acquisitions and adjustments. We were going to get that in 3 phases. We're actually going to get that in 2 steps. It's still 3 steps, but in my mind, it's 2. When that project closes in this month, we'll get about $169,000. And then in January, we're going to get $494,000, which is part of the project fee. That's the money that we're supposed to get further down the road, but in working with the development team to get the Habitat properties and the Albany city properties in, and then any of our expenses that came as a result of holding that, they spun that payment up to us sooner. The last of that is $183,000 approximately that's deferred until the end of the project, and that development fee will likely get adjusted if there's some cost overage or member loans that are still have to be resolved. So that 183 is deferred to the end, but with that development fee, depending on how costs settle out. We could get all of it, we could get part of it, we could get none of it. We won't see until that moves along. But that has been the structure of that agreement from when that was initially done before I've been here. So I'm just happy that we actually preserved well more than that because of the way we spent up those payments. If we had done it the other way, where we had done 3 payments, we would have had about 250 at risk. So we have 183 at risk, depending on how the project goes. So I think that's a positive step in the right direction. 1, 2, 3. I think that's pretty much everything. So, as we adjust, we'll, end the year a little better than this number here. Some of this is just the timing. As we've stepped on the gas a little bit, we've had more expenses, and that we have to just get caught up with the grant programs. But nothing that I'm concerned with. Our revenue is fine, our expenses are fine, our cash position is fine. So, my observations and recommendations, again, the revenue shortfall is primarily due to our underperformance in the grant income and property sales, shrinking inventory, as you know. The operating expenses are well controlled, but our losses increased significantly compared to the prior year. Again, timing of the grants comes into play there. And then also some of the emergency demolitions too. They were not anticipated, so we absorbed those pretty well considering. So we're going to step forward, more grant acquisition efforts. That, is why we went forward with a couple of grant applications in the past couple of weeks. Just an acknowledgement to Jason for stepping up and getting us our home buyer development application in. That allows us to access, was that $600,000?
No, that's $250,000 per unit.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Per unit, yeah.
Yeah. So actually, that's a significant chunk that will, if we're successful in that grant, that will allow us to keep moving things forward into 2026. So better narrative than on paper, I will say that. Any questions about the financial report?
So you're showing an 860 loss, right? 860,000 loss at the moment?
Through November, right? But we have a number of payments that are still
by the end of the year, right? We're in December now. Just not holding you to it, but what will we end up in the calendar year? What do you think?
I'm aiming as close as even as possible, but I think the delta is going to probably be those emergency demolitions.
Yep.
Okay. So 100 to 200,000. We're trying to recover those, but I think that's going to be where the unanticipated cost is. But we've also, stepped forward in other areas like that porch replacement that I know 59 Judson people were frustrated about the condition of that, so we've stepped up in those areas. So, yeah, I think, we'll spend down a little bit, but I think that's just, we've planned on reinvesting some of this revenue back into the community to address the concerns we're working on.
Great.
Any other questions?
I have no questions. Thank you for that rundown, Sean. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. If there's none, I'm going to move into our new business to give you some updates here. We did take a walkthrough of 360 Sheridan Avenue with the Seat Center in Youthville. We did that just the other day. The reason for that, one, is just to see the progress there and to get a sense as to when that's going to be done. As you know, that was a project that, when initially was pitched, the contract had that project finishing in July 2024, mid-July 2024. But that first wall didn't go up until June 18th, 2024, so we weren't getting done in 2 weeks. So supported them through that project. They even let us know that they have their note coming due with home headquarters in Syracuse at the end of the year. And so they're trying to figure out how they're going to pay for that. They have a $250,000 note with home headquarters for this project. The terms of the contract had us paying them off, or paying them when we sold it. We're nowhere near able to sell this right now. They tell us 3 months. Lynette and I think it's probably more like 6 months for them to get done with this. They still have to get the plumber in. The plumber they use hasn't been able to get in there and keep working. So we're in a spot, and this is where I think, and if we want to talk about this because it's contractual, I think we do have the privilege of the executive session, we could. But I'm waiting for more information to come in from the Seat Center, so I'm not looking for any recommendation or, action by this committee at this point, but just to fill you in and get your thoughts on it. But I understand where they're at. They've got to pay that note off. They've incurred about they've showed us about $220,000 in expenses to date without the project being done. They have some change orders they need to send our way to take a look at and review. And some of those changes, Charlie, you'll remember there's going to be a change order for the deck because that got moved. The stairs got moved and the deck got added onto the back. I think that's mostly it for change orders. I'm trying to think if we really had any significant other changes in that project, and we haven't. They had, an expense on pump jacks to do the siding of about $6,000 or $7,000 that they didn't anticipate. And in fact, I think we probably made the project a little easier for them because we're going to have to modify the front facade for that flat appearance to the roof, even though it was peaked. And we were able to work with city planning to just allow it to be built with a peak roof because other buildings in the neighborhood had a similar appearance, so we weren't creating something inconsistent. But the challenge here is what they're asking for us is to pay for this project well ahead of it being done.
Well, you should also realize that when they first did the underground, the foundation and everything, they submitted a $25,000 change order, and I've been asking them for 2 years to itemize it, and no one's presented that. So if they're talking about cost overruns, it started right from the beginning, and the contractor, whether it was Elton Toon or whoever it was, never gave me or any of us why, how did you get to it? We're not arguing, but there's site work, there's fill, there's things like that. But they just sent a bill and said, oh, it's $25,000 more. That's not the way to do business.
Yeah. And right there, Charlie, that between the 221 that was in the initial contract and that 25, before interest, we're close to 250. And then they still have to factor in the interest. I've asked them just to give us the financials on that so we can
I'm just saying we're
what they're asking.
to the detail. We've been asking for 2 years.
Mm-hmm. All right. Is there anything that you'd like me to do ahead of the board meeting? Anticipating that they might have an ask or a request to us. I mean, they're going to need to modify the contract to modify any payment terms, and we're going to have to sign off. They said they have pictures on the change order, but I need to see that change order was before my time, Charlie. Sorry.
Harry could extend the construction loan if he wanted to.
Yeah.
Right? They say this thing is coming due. Who is it coming due to? It's coming due to Home Headquarters. Now, Home Headquarters is intimately involved and knows what Seat is doing with youth build. So, I don't understand why they wouldn't work it out internally between the two of them. But
okay.
I won't go into that now, but I'm just saying that, okay?
Yeah. I'll go back to Seat and ask them, what the conversation has been with Kerry and Home Headquarters on it.
I mean, to ask us to get money for a house that we can't sell is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see how we can, pay them the majority of of it when we don't have a completed product. So, if they can sort of come to terms with us with something reasonable, then we can consider it. But
Exactly. Right.
yeah, whatever, and if you guys want to sort of help guide them as to what might be a bit more reasonable, I am very okay with that, obviously, and you probably already have been. So.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. It's probably, Lynette and I are sidebarring here, it's probably 60% complete. So would we entertain a progress payment of 60%?
Charlie, I defer to you, but I would want some of that information that both you and Charlie mentioned was missing first, along with that ask.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So we'll insist on the change orders, we'll insist on more details in the financials. We'll need to know that they've gone back to Carrie to try to get an extension on the terms to be able to complete the project. And
Okay.
in consideration, somebody can sign off on it, on progress to date, but we're estimating 60%, that maybe we can, get to that point.
Hey, Sean, question, Charlie too, I guess. If this wasn't the seat center, how would we be proceeding?
We wouldn't have been able to do it because we didn't apply for any state money for it, so there's a big deficit, of course, it
Oh.
cost $350,000 to build a house that we sell for $150,
No,
And
no,
so
I
he's
understood. I meant like with this situation.
What?
I was
No, I was
more
gonna say-
specifically with,
Sorry, Joe, I was gonna say, if this was WPNT, we would have done progression payments, as their job progressed with a 10% retainer. Or, holding back 10%.
Yeah, and so what we're
Understood.
dealing with is UPNT submitted its $25,000 change order with no backup. So if we're
Understood.
being asked to put up any money at all, we need to see the details.
Okay,
got it. Thank you.
all right. I got my marching orders there. Any other, thoughts or feedback on that before I go back to them? All right. Last month we talked about, I think it was Natisha who brought it up, that it had been a while since the board and the staff had done a retreat together. So, excuse me, we've taken that feedback back. We were trying to see if we could pull it off in December. I think we quickly realized that was very ambitious. So our goal is to get that board and staff retreat together before the annual meeting in March. I think that's a well-timed opportunity to do that. Some of the things that, happen at the annual meeting as we appoint the committees and with the adjusted committee structure, I think it's a good time to ask people to recommit to the committees that they're involved in. I'm very grateful to the executive committee because you're actively involved, I think, in almost every committee along the way, and you give up a lot of time for that. And I think part of the discussions I've had with you all along the way is just making sure that we give all of our board a chance to engage there. So I put out just a memo of the things that we're talking about, and again, your thoughts or feedback or, if we're not in the right place in terms of what you'd like to see, making an adjustment there. But we have talked to one facilitator. We have another call tomorrow with another facilitator. Shelby's been doing a great job pulling those folks together. But I think that, our goals for a one-day retreat are 5 here. One is just to continue to reconnect and build cohesion. We may potentially have a new member on board, and then a lot of the staff have, changed in the past year, and while you've gotten to meet them at meetings, and maybe you've had a phone call here or there, I think it'd just be a good chance for us to all spend a day talking about the mission that we're working with. The other piece is that number 2 here is just strategic alignment, making sure that we have a chance to regularly review our mission and document our vision and what our current priorities are, and then identify for the land bank, both the board and the team, a couple to a few strategic focus areas for the next year to year and a half. The reason for that is just to make sure that we are moving things in the right direction, and that as we try to diversify funding, that we're also looking in the right place. And we're not going after opportunities that you as a board don't feel that it aligns with what our overall mission is and where we're trying to take things. The third piece is just to clarify roles and governance, ensure that we, understand the board and the staff's responsibilities. This started out as a small one person, eventually a 2-person nonprofit, 10 years ago. Now a professional team of 7, where boards that have a small nonprofit are, very engaged. As a working board, you don't need to be a working board because you have the staff behind you. And so in that space, they tend to classify a board like this is a governing board. So we just want to go through all of that so that we all understand what everybody's doing day in and day out. And then find the ways that we do effectively collaborate together and then hold accountability back and forth. I think for me, you know, it's the accountability within our day-to-day team, but then I think with the board, just accountability to each other as well, and what you're involved with and you know, showing up and being engaged. We want to be able to celebrate achievements. We've done a lot in 10 years. We want to be able to go through some of that and make sure that we're all very much aware of how far we've come. I always tell people that, you know, we celebrated selling 1,000 properties, but there's so much more to the story than just celebrating 1,000 properties. When we talk to our partners at the county, you know, we talk about the value of property, of real estate return back to tax rolls that, you know, could still be in a foreclosure cycle. So I think that's a win. And then just some of the human stories too. We all have interactions along the way, and being able to bring those stories back and tell you about those experiences, I think, are valuable. And then the last piece is to take everything for that day to create really strategic priorities that lead to actionable steps for all of us, and then give out that ownership and timeline. You know, things that we might ask of the board, you know, more help with making connections and just the networks that you know that we might not be tied directly into, helping us with those pieces. You know, I want to acknowledge, you know, Joe, for example, you asked, you knew somebody who's a contractor who was doing work and made that connection to Lynette, and I think that was very valuable to help us just continue to grow in our space here. You know, Sam's been a great resource with the drone program that he runs, and getting up and letting us see some rooftops that we need to take a look at. And you know, Charlie, I get to sit down with almost every Friday just to talk about where we're heading and what we're doing. And Natisha, you know, your critical thinking and your refocus on real estate, I think, is extremely helpful for us too, and another set of realtor eyes at the table here. So I just want to acknowledge everybody for all that, and how we, you know, can start to leverage that better. So I said a lot there. Any other thoughts on goals or how you might see that day flowing as we continue to shape it up and get a date together?
I think it,
No more than 3 or 4 hours. Certainly not a whole day.
3 to 4 hours?
Yeah.
Okay. Joe?
well, I think it might be helpful to circulate, and I know, Sean, you've sent some items just outlining kind of KPIs and goals, but maybe we can have something ready to discuss in order to keep us focused. And I don't know necessarily what that looks like, but you know, in terms of goals, I think there's a lot of things we could get into that would take up 3 to 4 hours on their own.
Okay.
So maybe just brainstorming in advance and having at least that portion of things ready to discuss might be helpful to keep things moving.
Okay. We'll talk to the facilitator about that, if there's some things that she has done with other boards in the past that we want to have prepared and ready.
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah. All right. So we'll keep working ahead on a 3 to 4 hours. Do you want that to start late morning, take a break for lunch, and then finish up in the afternoon? Do you want to start in the morning, go to lunch? Do you want to come in at lunch and go into the afternoon? You know, is there a general preference among the four of you here on what that day would look like?
No, I'm not going to micromanage that. I'm just saying, Joe brought up a really interesting point. If the vision stuff that we want to talk about, if we have the material ahead, then we don't have to spend hours discussing it for the first time. And so that's how things can move along in a retreat, you know. So we have to have the material in advance of what we want to talk about. And then, you know, I'm not going to micromanage how you and the consultant end up with the day. lunch hours too. I don't, you know, all I'm saying is
Well, I
I've
just
seen
want
it last all day, and they drone on, and that's no good. But, you know, maybe Joe is right, 3 to 4 hours is maybe a little short, but once again, I'll defer to the consultant and to staff.
okay. We'll do that, and then we'll see what our facilitator gives us back for feedback and how much time there is and when we do that. I guess I'm just trying to anticipate how to be a productive day and everything else that you have going on, when you'd like to start that. Do you want to start in the morning? Do you want to start at mid-morning? Do you want to start at lunch? I think those are, or does it not matter at all, really?
So the most compact meeting is 8 to 12, right, with one break. But probably that's unrealistic. So maybe it's 2 hours in the morning, lunch, and then 2 hours in the afternoon, something like that.
Okay. Well, we'll do that. I think that we'll start late morning, feed everybody lunch, and then continue to the afternoon, and then we'll have a hard stop. Okay?
I think
All right.
that sounds great.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Moving ahead, the key performance indicators, we talked about those last month. I didn't know if there was any more thoughts on that. I know you wanted to take a look at these here. You know, we'll continue to handle our core operational metrics of properties acquired, sold, demolished, and received through donations. You know, I think my goal would be to take probably 2 more KPIs into next year. The reason I want to take on 2 is that we are shifting to a new system to manage our property, so being able to also consider how we collect and report data will be helpful. But if we try to do 10 additional KPIs, we may overload ourselves and not get what we need to in terms of the into the system there. I mean, there's things like average days in inventory. I don't know if that has to be a key performance indicator. I think that comes into play, you know, making some real estate decisions. But maybe we want to look at vacancy reduction rate in our target neighborhoods. I think percentage of properties returned to productive use may be beneficial and affordable housing units created.
Yeah,
I don't know how to put it into a KPI or if it's just a goal, but we do have to include maintenance obligation responsibility in some way. I don't know the best way to do that yet, but I think that is a gaping hole right now in how we track progress.
Okay. We were trying to do that, I think, maybe a little bit through code enforcement, but I don't necessarily know. I don't have a lot of good feelings about tracking it that way. And the reason being is I said that we had 0, and then we got one the other day. And when I read it, we were getting a violation for our vacant building registration expiring tomorrow. It's not expired. We're not in violation, but that was one of the elements of the violation. So I don't have a great deal of confidence in using something like codes to do that. Joe, what about, you know, we want to get this wellness inspection in place. Do you want us to consider like how often we review a property for a wellness inspection? I think we were initially, you know, talking about it at least twice a year because we were talking about finding somebody who can't, you know, if I don't want to rely. I appreciate Sam's time, but I know it's not Sam's work to go out and fly above our properties to look at roofs. So we were looking for somebody else, and we were aiming for like 2 looks a year at the rooftops of properties. And I think that, I don't know, you think like a quarterly wellness check? You know, quarterly wellness check that I don't know if maybe we aim to get that done 100% of the time. We'd like to, but I think what's a realistic, you know, if we achieved.
In my mind, it's a product of our goals to a degree, right? So I don't know if we go ahead with a key indicator and then develop the goal afterwards, or maybe that's a holistic conversation with the consultant.
Okay.
Because to your point, we don't want to create key indicators that aren't realistic goals. Because in my mind right now, I'm saying we should be in every property at least once a month, but there's more to it than just saying that. We have to be able to put that in action, and I think that's part of the goal development in my mind, at least.
Yeah, we had tried initially the wellness inspection of trying to get out to places once a month, but we just don't have we don't have the staff resources to do everything and then still get that done.
You're right, and perhaps the goal is to create a property inventory maintenance system that aligns with that, and then get staffing where it needs to be. So maybe the KPI this year isn't a amount of visits, but maybe it is getting a system in place. I'm not sure, just talking out loud right now.
No, that's good. I mean, it's why we gotta have these committee meetings for that. All right, let's Lynette and I talk about that a little bit more, Joe, and give you some thoughts on that, and circle and come back around to it. And then I'm also gonna just check in with a couple of other land banks on maybe some KPIs around maintenance and see what others are doing as we try to think about it. Maybe somebody has something that is makes a lot of sense to us, or maybe somebody's tried something and they're not succeeding at it. We'll do a little bit more digging on that. All right. That's all I have for that. I'd like to, review the annual staff reviews with you. I'd like to do that in an executive session, if that's all right with everybody. And if that's the case, once we have a motion to enter executive session, we'll shut the live stream down and just be myself and the committee in the meeting there. So I need a motion to enter executive session to discuss the employment of a particular person or persons.
So moved.
Second.
Keisha, second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? I heard everybody an aye, so. All right, give us 1 second to reset and I'll be right back with you.